This is a video about bow distribution. Now by bow distribution, what I mean is being in the right spot in the bow for what's coming up next. For instance, if you have a long up bow that's about to happen, you need to work your way out to the tip so that you've got enough bow for that. Very often, if we're not thinking ahead, we get to a spot where there's a long up bow coming. If you're here in the bow, there's just not going to be enough room to finish the bow stroke properly. And the exact opposite is true, of course. If you have a long down bow coming up, you need to work your way to the frog so that you have plenty of bow to use for the long down bow. So the example is in the middle of the Handel Bourree, right after the repeat sign. We have a passage that goes like this. And very frequently, that high B that is slurred to an E, that's 3 full beats, and it's after a crescendo, and it's high notes. All 3 of those things determine that we need to be close to the tip when we start that. Very frequently what a student will do when they don't have enough bow and don't realize it, there's one of 2 things. It'll either be this, and choke that note, which obviously is a very ugly sound we want to avoid. Or what will happen is they will just sort of subconsciously rush those 3 beats and not hold them for the proper amount, so it sounds like this. I see both of those problems very frequently. So the solution is, in the 2 or 3 notes before the long note, is to purposely use a little longer down bows and purposely use a little shorter up bows so you can work your way to the tip. Let me demonstrate that in kind of slow motion. Now here I'm going to use a long down bow and then a very short up bow and then another long down bow. Now that puts me right at the tip. I can hold that its full value right there. So at regular speed, and it's especially that note right before, that quarter note, that down bow. If you really extend the bow quickly, you can get out to the tip and then have that note really speak cleanly and for its full duration. There are 2 other spots in the Bourree that have that same rhythm, where you have a note that has to be held for 3 beats on an up bow, but they're both lower in register, in other words lower notes, and they are after a decrescendo, meaning we don't have to play them loud. And so those aren't nearly as difficult. We don't have to work your way out to the bow, out to the tip and use a long bow like the example I've been showing you. So right here at the beginning, for instance, the end of the first 4 measures, that rhythm happens, but let me demonstrate. It's not nearly as difficult. So right there I need to start a down bow, but it's quiet and it's a lower note, so you don't need nearly as much bow. One more issue to work on with the bow in the Bourree are the crescendos in measures 5 and 7 and at the very end. We have these rising 8th note figures, and your bow should be going longer and longer on each of those 8th notes until we get to the arrival note. So the measure 5 is like this. So each of those 8th notes use a little more bow, a little more, a little more. And the very end, if you keep the bow the same, just staying in the middle instead of extending outwards towards the tip and the frog, then the crescendo is extremely difficult to do, and it's never going to have the kind of emotional impact that it can have.